Before I start, with respect to any Indigenous brothers and sisters here, there will be some photographs of people who have recently deceased. Bear with me. This is a great honour to be here. I come today with some lovely gifts. The first is from Anne and Frank yesterday about the fallibility of the human service world. It's lovely to hear it again. From Jackie about the importance of love and friendship and community. I thank you, Jackie, wherever you are, for that fabulous presentation and your heartfelt message. And to Michael and Patrick for their messages of hope. So today I'm going to talk about right relationship. If I were to dumb this down, or put it into, not dumb it down, but put it into the analogies of today, it's tricks for travelling. So we've done a lot of talking over the last day about what you can do, where you can go. Today, Michael and I are going to talk about how you do it. So, in answer to the question here that was posed to Michael and me, is it possible to create a partnership between families and service that really works? And my answer is yes, unequivocally. Unequivocally yes. So now I want to talk to you about the how. But before I do this, I want to introduce to you two people. The first is my daughter Mina, who died in 2009. The second is Sue Halstone, who I've known for about 25 years. Quickly, Mina lived for nearly 30 years. She lived in her own home for 11 of those 30 years. She was a firecracker. She really sorted us as a family, and I don't know quite what else to say, but she sorted us big time. Susan is now 44, and she's lived in her own home for now 17 years. Now, Susan and Mina were supported by a small service called Homes West, which is only made up of between 10 and 12 families. It's been going for nearly 25 years, and their purpose is for people to live good lives in the home of their own. Susan was the first to leave home of those 10 people, and Mina was soon to follow. My role here with these two people, they're going to illustrate for me, they're my teachers around right relationship. Mina, I'll just go back a step. I was a ferocious parent. My mother called me a tiger cat. And some of you, well, a lot of you here would know that motion. You want to kill. You want to tear jugulars out. I have made social workers cry. I once told a group that I eat social workers for breakfast. I had a rep. Mina didn't like this all as much, and she I once told her, the minister of the church that she went to, that to stop using prayer as an avoidance tactic. After that, she wouldn't let me go into the church anymore. Susan knows no enemies. She's a seriously, wonderfully gentle soul. Often lost in the world, sometimes confused, but never has made an enemy of anybody. So these two people have brought to me a humility, I hope. I'm hard to humble, can I say? But, they have brought to me a humility about how to work with others. So just quickly, what is right relationship? This is my thought. I think about the three-legged stool. You need to build a good life, you need three forces. You need a very good service. You need a family that's going to hang in there ferociously in the long term. And you need community that's going to work with you. And if any of those legs aren't there, you've got a very wobbly situation. But today I'm going to just focus about the relationship between the family and the service. Families are there with unconditional love, long-term histories, commitment, vested interest in good outcomes, and most likely will advocate the strongest. Michael once wrote a very good article called The Natural Authority of Families. It's not sycophantic, it's a very realistic document. It's a one-pager, and I used to have it on the fridge. It's a very good thing to get. Google it. Go to Michael's website, you'll get it. Print it out, put it on your fridge. It gives you the authority. It reminds you of the authority you have as families. Service can be terrible and it can be wonderful. They're very good at assisting regularly, being reliable, doing specific tasks, very skilled specific tasks. They can bring particular expertise. They can manage complex situations and negotiations, particularly with government. And they can protect families from government. They can manage finances and contracts. They are, on the whole, with exceptions, rented strangers. The turnover is high, very high. In fact, you can lose the information about your family member within 3 years. Currently in Queensland, the turnover is 30%. So it is, they do have, services have great strengths, but they are limited in a lot of areas. Community, on the other hand, is changeable, irregular, unreliable, yet full of possibilities and safeguards. So let's go forth into this relationship. There are 3 parts here. First of all, I would just like to say that right relationship isn't going to come to you by email or in a pet pack by air or in a parcel. It's not a thing. It's a process. It's a way of thinking. And I think it has 3 parts. This is how I have felt it to be. The first is planning. The second is practicing. And the third is preparing to hand over. I was really getting into the P's here. So I'm going to go through each of these now. For planning, I don't think you can go into right relationship unless you've done your homework. And I'm talking not only to families here, but to services. I think you need to know deeply who you are and what your vision is and what your plan is. And that may take some considerable work before you expect to go into right relationship or a respectful relationship with someone else. For families, it's about a clear vision for the future for your family member and to plan. Now, I'm not saying you've got to have it all in the bag up front. This is, again, a process in itself. The best thing that Jeremy and I ever did, my husband Jeremy over here, and I did, was in 1988 when we realised that the service world didn't have a plan for Mina, and we didn't either, that we opened a bottle of wine in front of the fire and made a plan. We made a vision and we made a plan. And the vision was that Mina would be a valued citizen in her local community. Simple. And that vision stayed with us to the end, to the end. Mina was in her own home until 4 days before she died. That vision held us. It anchored us. It guided us on our journey. So I think I do ask you all to name your vision. Don't tattoo it on your heart. Lots of people tattoo now, but because it might change, it might refine. You don't want to cross it out and fix it up, but certainly hold it close to your heart and start your planning. From a service side, I think it's very respectful and helpful to families if you're very clear about your vision and you tell the families where you are coming from, what you hope to do, where you hope to go, and what's your plan to do that. The next is, what is family business and service business? Now, this is a very important element of Homes West. We ask families to be very clear about what is their business. What are they going to take responsibility for? What are they going to own as the work in the relationship? And I do suggest there are things that are negotiable and non-negotiable with each family. Within Homes West, we had families who were coal miners and professors. Very different cultures. And their visions, their plans, and what they saw as family business was very different. Nevertheless, I think there are some basics. One is that I think it's quite risky if you hand over your vision and planning to someone else. There are things that are, the other thing I think is very important for families to own and keep close is the culture of the family. The culture of the family and what they see and can help their family member to develop is the culture, the way they live. What is their values? What are their passions, their dreams? That is the family business. The other bit about family business is to name the quality of service you want, when you want it, and when you don't want it. It's very important, I think, for families to name that. Now, on the other end, there's service business. Services business is to respond, to pay their staff, to ensure their staff are trained, they're safe, they're reliable, they're honest. That's the service business. That the business of service is coherent, that they are obeying the law, that they are following through on their contracts. And then there is some grey matter in between. There's a grey area, there's an area of negotiation. For Homes West, every year families work out what is their name again, what is their family business, and the service names what's their service business, and they come together and they negotiate. Now for me, I always wanted to do the rosters, a bit of a control freak, but there was a very good reason for it. I like to do the rosters. I like to be able to juggle what was happening that was planned and also to be able to bring in the spontaneous opportunities that could happen. So I always said that was part of my grey area in between. I scooped that into my business in the family agreement each year. I do know other families that found that very difficult and overwhelming to do the rosters. Their family life was such that that was too much, and so they gave it to the service to do. But they could take it back, and each year, at any time during the year, that agreement could be changed. What was important was there was a conscious and open process. Okay, the third was to decide to work in right relationship. Now this brings up some, guilts for me, because it's actually easier to be outrageously righteous and the others are wrong. It's actually very difficult. It was very difficult for me to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I actually quite enjoyed the banter. I liked the anger. In fact, someone asked me once, why do you need anger? I think there's actually an adrenaline with it. And I do see other families that quite like being victims. They like to be righteous. Everyone else does it wrong. Poor me. Right relationship means leaving that behind and deciding to work on the same side of the table with the service. And that may mean a change in behaviour. So the practice. Again, there's no silver bullet here. And I say it's a bit like making love. It's a bit like cooking, gardening. You start at the beginning and you learn how to do it as you go along. Really? There are some books out there, but they're not all that useful. So it's starting at the beginning and stepping out and doing it. It does require some intentionality, as I said before. It is about saying, okay, this is the way I'm going to behave, this is the way I'm going to work now, and I'm going to really try to make this work. So, now part of that is about keeping close to the action. If you're on the other side of the city, if you're in another town, this is quite difficult. It can be done, but there is some value in being physically close by. And there are good reasons for this. One is that you can solve problems quickly, locally and creatively. Problems will keep coming up, issues will keep coming up over and over and over. My theory is you deal with them quickly. You deal with them as soon as possible and you deal with them as creatively as possible. Because if you don't, they sit there, they fester, they get bigger, they get nastier, and they get unsolvable. The third is about keeping planning and be ready for spontaneous opportunities. So this is a little balance. You do all your planning, and suddenly something comes in from the side that is an opportunity you just didn't expect. And actually it is part of the planning that opportunity has come. So it's this wonderful balancing here, that you've got all your rosters right, and then somebody says, there's a big party down the road, okay? And you want to take advantage of that. You want that opportunity to happen for your son or daughter. You want to get out there and make the most of it. And so it's that being able to do that, the two things. And you can't do that unless you're talking and you're working with people. You're working with the service is working with the family. And you can do that close by. So this is a photo of a house, what we call the house meeting. It's 2005, it's a little old. I look much younger and more gorgeous there. But it does illustrate a number of things. The people in there is a motley crew. There are some workers, There's a housemate, so I can point to her, whether this works there. Mary was a housemate. There were some workers, Jeremy, my husband, and here just in the background was the coordinator of Homes West. Now we held these meetings every month, and there was a little process here, which was the fundamental of building right relationship. First of all, it's a round table. There's no hierarchy here. Those staff look pretty relaxed, really. And they're getting stuck into a glass of wine. I think we most probably had one of Mary's tandoori chicken pizzas beforehand. And so good food, good wine, and a group round table allows for wonderful things to happen. It's an old Quaker thing. I don't think the Quakers drink, but certainly they eat, and they eat together, and that's where a lot of decision making happens. These meetings are regular. We had some hard business to do and some easy business to do, but the key to it was that we affirmed everybody. Everyone, what did we do in the last month? What did we do in the month ahead? What are we going to do in the month ahead? What again is this vision that we've all got? What is, how is this working? And then within that process, some suggestions would come up. Now, let me say, this isn't the place to admonish somebody or to sort out some, difficulty with one particular staff member. This is a clear right relationship building process. Now I'm going to offer you something that's pretty intuitive here, but what I do want to share with you is that I learnt this from older families. Now I saw families go through problem after problem after problem, and I think, how do you get up the next day full of hope, still with the vision, getting ready for the next day, getting on with it? And so this is what I came to. First of all, when something awful happens, and you will all have something in your mind where you have felt deeply betrayed, someone has really let you down, they haven't done what they said they were going to do, they have done something, they have pooped in their nest big time, right? And you are upset, really upset. You've all got that in your mind, that little occasion? Okay, and it's for people from service land too. There are families can do pretty dumb things. So the first in my mind, what you need to do is to name that thing, because often people won't name it. Right? Didn't happen, maybe it didn't happen, okay? You're going to name it, that happened, and name who should have done it, right? And surprise, surprise, it might have been you that should have done it. So this is honesty moment, right? Whose job was it? Who didn't do it? What went wrong? And then you get upset. And you get upset as best you can. I suggest you do it privately, quietly, not quietly. You can shout like Hakim yesterday. You can really get it out. You can kick the cat. You can vent your spleen. You can. I had a house that looked out over a valley, and I used to scream out over the valley. That was a good thing. But you need. My suggestion is you emote, and you get it out. And this may take some time, but you do it and you work at it and you get it out. And then you reflect. You don't go and write the letter immediately. You sit, you wait, you reflect, sleep on it, go have a cup of tea. Depends on how big it is. Right? You might need to sleep a couple of nights on it. But you reflect. And sure as damn it, what will happen is there will be something that you can do. Because we can't change other people's behaviour, but what we can do is change our own. And it might be one simple act. It might be, if it is your responsibility and you let someone down and then there was a mess, then you go and apologise. That might be what you have to do. Or you might have to sack somebody. Or you might have to change something. But I am asking that you do it. Because what happens is when people get stuck in emotions, that's very risky. You can be angry, sad, miserable, victim, blame, and sit there for years. For years. Doing a simple act, and it might be just a small thing, shifts everything. It shifts it. Mightn't solve it, but it shifts it. And then you just think, after a little while you think, when the dust settles, did that work? How good was that? How good was that process? How good was I? I emoted in half an hour, right? And I did it in the bathroom and I didn't even break the mirror, right? I'm pretty good at this. So why I do this is because as sure as damn it, another issue will be along. And you cannot afford to be holding anything behind. If you're going to last the distance, you see the wonderful older families here who are resilient, who are out there for the next round, who've got a new vision, a new plan. This is what they do. They cannot afford to hold onto anything. They must move forward. Now, there's a little sobering bit here, because even the most resilient families get old and they die. And some families die young. Rarely, but it does happen. Most of us, 60% of us here, will go into our 90s and we'll all be, pottering along for quite some time. So, but we will die. Absolutely. No problem. Okay? It's a given. So, Susan's mother, when I was going through this, said, the most valuable thing we can give our children is that we've handed over our family business. So taking into account that we're not good at this and you'll need some practice, I suggest you all start handing over now. It's what Tom Halstone, Susan's father, says, practice dying. That's a good thing. Go on a holiday, hand over the business, do a little practice, disappearing for a while. So there is, why I'm saying this is so important is because you cannot have good, right relationship if there's no family there. You cannot have good, and this is also with the service. You can't have good, right relationship if the service has gone down the toilet as well. Because there hasn't been any planning about handing over to the next generation. I hope I've done all those for you. I'll just quickly, so that's about making space for others and being intentional and that it takes time. So here we have a picture of Joan and Tom with Susan. Susan's looking a bit cranky because it's an 80th birthday party and it's not her scene, so don't worry about that. But Joan and Tom have intentionally been handing over for 25 years. For 20 years I have been a trustee in their will to be prepared to take over Sue's finances and I know for 20 years Joan has kept a diary, has kept a book, what we call a red book, where she has written Sue's history. She's got it out of her head into a book, right? Everything. Because she wants to be able to hand that to me. I know where that book is, okay? So while we're all thinking life, I've got a game plan when Joan dies, Joan and Tom die. So, and part of this is also about wills and trusts and thinking all these issues through, and I live with Jeremy Ward, so say no more, I know all this stuff. I sleep with it, and I guess the bottom line on that is that just being intentional, it's hard to do and it takes time. I'm getting old now, I'm 61, so Joan's realising her plan to hand it over to me might go down the toilet as well, because the young thing that used to bounce around is now getting less bouncy. So we've got a next layer coming through. And here we have on Sue's circle, we have 3 young women who are around Sue's age. There's Rebecca here, who is a former support worker, Anne, whose house backs onto Joan and Tom's, and there's a new member to the circle is Claire. Now Claire is a local GP, and she has a young son with autism who's very like Sue in his needs. And so she's very excited because this is now a very reciprocal process for her. She's really developing a vision very quickly and seeing what's possible for her son. So what we have here is 3 young women, 20 years younger than me, who are taking on, I'm handing to them now the vision for Sue, the information, the strategies, everything they need to know in case I go under a train. So just on that, just a final picture here. It's a picture of Mina, and she's on holidays. It's towards the end of her life. I wanted to put it up there because it does illustrate the key here. I'm not there. I was 100 miles away. Mina is extremely vulnerable here. Her bag is full of medication to deal with her status epilepticus. She's had a history here of around 30 lights and siren visits to the hospital. What we have here is 3 people having a good time with Mina on holiday. It could have been a very different picture. But what we have here is 1 support worker, 1 person on Mina's circle, and a friend of hers. And they've taken her off for a holiday regardless. And they've done that because they know the vision. They know the deal. They've got the information. And best of all, they're all working together in right relationship. Okay, thank you.